to Chief Chat on WDHT TV. My name is Siham Awada Jaafar, and it is my pleasure to be among two gentlemen whose really primary focus is the safety of our residents and our communities here in the Dearborn Heights area. We have Police Chief Lee Gavin with us. Thank you for being with us on Chief Chat today, Chief.
Thank you. Nice seeing you today.
Thank you. And we have Fire Chief Dave Brogan. Welcome to Chief Chat.
Thank you.
Good. This is really exciting because I think having a conversation about safety, about things that are happening within our communities, and from the two gentlemen who actually make sure that things go right in Dearborn Heights. We're going to be talking about, well, finally summer is here. And so with summer comes some hazards and some safety issues. So that's what we're going to be discussing today. Chief Gavin, there's so many things that happen within the city, beautiful things within summertime, the warm weather, people are out, people are having a great time, but the flip side to that is there's a lot of issues in terms of safety hazards that occur within the summer months. People go on vacation quite a bit and leaving their homes, theft issues. What kind of advice do you have for our residents?
We'll talk about a few topics today. We'll start with summer being here, the warm weather. We get an increase in crime activity in the community, and that is, a couple reasons. People go on vacation, their homes are vacant. People go out to the lake and the parks for the day and leave their, windows open in their homes. So I just like to make our citizens aware that this time of the year, when you do leave, secure your doors, secure your windows. Our breaking and enterings in the city has been staying status quo. We've not really seen an increase, but we want to keep it that way. We want our residents, when they leave for the day, make sure you lock your doors, close your windows. A lot of people leave and say, hey, I'm just going for an hour. Nothing's going to happen to my house. Maybe in that hour time, someone could come up, just try your doors. They could get in and steal your valuables. So we want to prevent that. Also, we've seen an increase in the city in our larcenies from vehicles. That is, people park their cars in the driveway or in the street, and they don't lock the door lock. We get so many complaints. People say, I had my computer, I had my iPad, I had some extra change in my car. You know what? We'll get these individuals going down the streets, midnight, 1, 2 in the morning. All they do is they ride their bicycle, they'll go up to the car, check the door handle, and it's open. You go in there and you get whatever's in there. So if you're going to park your car in the street, make sure you lock the doors and take your items out of it. If you have a computer, iPad, extra keys, a garage door opener, take that stuff out of there. Absolutely. And be secure with that.
Social media is really huge, and I'm always shocked when I get on the computer on Facebook and someone says, oh, I'm going on vacation from this time to this time, or I'm going to be at the park all day during this time. I mean, what advice do you have? I mean, I obviously that's hazardous within itself, because you're welcoming someone and saying, I'm not going to be home, come on in. So
open invitation.
Absolutely. Yes. How do we get that message out, especially to the younger generation?
We just ask our residents and their children, if you're going to go out of town on vacation, go away from day, don't post it on social media. We do not get that many crimes where someone knows you left for the day and going to come and break in. But there are those chances, slim minority, where someone does see that and it might give them an idea. Maybe your kids will post something and one of their friends might say something and say, hey, Johnny down the street's not going to be home. His family's going to be gone. You know what?
Let's go party.
Remember those baseball cards or whatever he had in the house? Let's go and take that. So by not posting that stuff on social media, reduces the chance of someone coming into your home.
Sure. And earlier you were telling me about a program where if you do go on vacation, you can actually call the police department and tell them.
And we've had that program for quite some time now, and it's called Vacation Checks. If you're going to be out of town for 2 days, couple weeks, whatever it's going to be, call the police department, the general number, which is 277-6770, and tell them that you're going to be on vacation out of town. They fill out a form, specifics, if you have any timers on, what vehicles you have in the driveway, any contact number. And then our reserve officers go by every day, every 2 days. They walk around the premises, make sure the house is secure. You know, every now and then you leave, you go out of town, you leave a window open. I had a neighbor of mine, went out of town. I was checking the house for him. He forgot to close the door, so the door was wide open. We're in a hurry to go on vacation, rush,
Sure.
failed to secure our home. So if you call that number I gave you, set up a vacation check, our reserve officers will go by and they'll check the home every couple days, day, 2 days. And then if they find an issue, you're going to leave us a contact number. We can either check with the neighbors or contact you and say, hey, you left this, or somebody left a car in the driveway. You know, is this your family member? And if there's anything suspicious, we would know about it. So it's a pretty good program.
Absolutely. That would create total peace of mind when somebody's on vacation
Yes.
and not home, knowing somebody's checking. Fire Chief Brogan, again, you know, the same issue in terms of the fire safety when you go on vacation. You know, what tips can you give our residents about making sure, you know, to secure their home and secure their belongings?
Well, when you take the human element out of it when there's no one home, so you only really have the mechanical. I mean, some kind of mechanical failure is what it would take to have a fire. There won't be any candles left burning or anything like that, of course. If you're not home to light them, yeah, unless you left them burning when you left for vacation, which would be that might be a problem. But you know, your furnace isn't running. The house is relatively safe unless you have something along the lines of an electric surge, something that might be out of your control. And so it's not a bad idea to make sure the smaller appliances are unplugged. Your coffee maker, even your toaster, anything that can create heat. You can't. There's not a huge risk when the house is left unattended, unless you're going to have some sort of mechanical failure.
But it is a good idea, like to unplug the coffee maker,
Yeah, the small,
and you know, hair dryer, and
yeah,
and
make sure all the small appliances are unplugged, and that's about the best you can do. One thing I would recommend for our citizens though is, if you do go on vacation or out traveling, especially if you're going overseas and not knowing where you're going, you can't count on all of the fire safety laws in place like we have here in the States, especially here in Dearborn Heights. We're very particular about making sure everything is safe. If you're going to a place, an assembly place, going to a nightclub, going to a bar, going to a theater, and you just want to be sure where you're at, it doesn't get overcrowded, you know where the exits are. We want our citizens to be safe not only here at home, but when they're out traveling. You got to be accountable for your surroundings and just be aware of what's going on.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you, Dearborn Heights is one of the best places to live, and you know that's a testament to you gentlemen and the crew that you have in terms of safety and other issues. Bonfires. I know my kids love to have bonfires, and I will tell you, and I'm going to open myself up here. My son was having a bonfire one night, and I was looking out the window, and one of his friends was pouring the lighter fluid onto it, and it just went up in the air, and my heart just sank. And I went outside, and you know, it's like, what are you doing? You know, get away from the fire.
Right.
And we tried to, you know, get it down. I mean, it was under control, but the fire was already burning, and this was just sort of an instinctive thing for him to do. Of course, you know, that fluid ended up away from them. And my poor neighbor, you know, it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, went over the fence and says, is everything okay over there? So, I mean, those kinds of things happen.
Right. What you described, that's something that you never, ever want to do. You never want to put any sort of accelerant onto a fire, especially a fire that's already burning. Yeah, of course.
Right?
In this hypothetical situation you described. But we've had incidents in the past where, especially, you'll have the lighter fluid in like the squeeze bottle, and they'll squeeze it into the fire, and the fire will follow it back. And it will catch the bottle on fire, and then they throw the bottle out of their hands because they're getting burned, and it will throw fire everywhere. And people you had many people, you know, everything's calm, and then it happens so fast, and then you have a big fire that's out of control and people injured. And so, yeah, this is a very, very common call for us. The calls on open, what we call open burns, bonfires, recreational fires. And there are very strict rules on what you need to do to have a legal fire in Dearborn Heights. You have to be 15 feet from a lot line, 15 feet from a structure. You need to have a means of extinguishment in place. It has to always be attended. Yeah. So, and you want to only burn seasoned firewood. You can't burn the leaves in your yard. You can't use it for disposal of any sort. And now, again, these aren't things that we're necessarily going out looking for. It's usually when we get a call. If the neighbor sees this huge fire across the thing, they're going to call. A lot of times we get calls for they think that, you know, I see flames, you know, across the alley. I think there's a house on fire across the street, and we'll go check it out. And that's what we'll usually find out, or pretty frequently this time of year.
Do you find people do bonfires without actually enclosing them, where they're just sort of makeshift?
Yep, they do that. You want to have one that, most of the time, if you go and buy one of the ones at Home Depot, at Lowe's, at one of those type stores, they make them that are safe and legal, and they've got all of the safeguards in place. Now, there are rules if you make a fire pit where you dig it into the ground.
Right.
Those are a little different. You have to be 25 feet from a structure or a lot line there, so that's almost hard to fit in our typical lot in Dearborn Heights. But there are some places where you could do it. And like I said, we're not out looking for these things. As long as, typically, if you're just having a small fire, it's not troublesome to the neighbors, then typically, you know, there's no issues with that. Having said that, even if you're following all of the rules and it's really windy, or the conditions are such where the smoke is going directly into your neighbor's house, and they do call, even if you're following all the rules, if the fire is creating a nuisance, then you still have to put it out, because people have the right to live without, you know, having their living room filled with smoke.
Absolutely,
So.
you have to respect that privacy issue as well. They don't want smoke and smelling like smoke too. So,
Yeah.
but I know that has been a real trend, you know, with the younger
Right.
generation,
Yeah.
especially with graduations and parties, and that seems to be the end of the night.
Yeah, and having a nice, calm fire is a nice thing. Having a big, huge bonfire is something completely different. You kind of get away from a nice, relaxing night that you were looking for.
Absolutely, absolutely. 4th of July is coming up, and although I love 4th of July, it's the time leading up to it that has just been crazy. And I know these last few years, you know, I have a little Pomeranian Papillon, and he hates the noises, and it's like a month before 4th of July, we're celebrating 4th of July. So I know there's some different things that have been put into place, thankfully. So can we talk about who's going to get in trouble if they do fireworks before?
We'll talk about fireworks. We want our residents to know, you know, with the law that was passed a couple years ago, there's 12 holidays, 10 holidays where you can light off fireworks the day before, the day of, and the day after. So near a holiday, there's 3 days, so multiply by our 10 holidays. That's
10
30.
holidays for fireworks?
Yep, there's 10 holidays
Okay.
listed. And so 3 days, you know, in with each holiday. So that's 30 days a year that people are legally able to light off the fireworks. There are some restrictions. You cannot light them off after midnight and, you know, before 8 a.m. So technically from 8 o'clock in the morning to midnight, you can light off the fireworks. In the past, when we would go out on fireworks, if we had some younger people, juveniles, have fireworks in their possession, we could confiscate them right a violation. In fact, anyone that had the fireworks. But now, since they made fireworks legal, to possess them, anyone can possess them. So, you know, anyone over 18 years of age. So we just can't go up to a group of kids now walking down the street if they're old enough with fireworks and confiscate them right in violation. They can possess them. So the issues we got to deal with is the ignition of the fireworks, lighting them off. There's a few different ordinances, in our ordinance, a few different ways we can enforce that. So if you light the fireworks off, you cannot light them off on city property, on church property, on school grounds. Got to be on your property. And when they go up, they have to come down on your property. And we all know if you've ever lit off fireworks, you can't control where they're going to come down. So they go up, they got to come down somewhere. Most likely they're not coming on your property.
Right.
And that's the issue we have. You know, we have a lot of neighbors, or like you said, people with animals, and the dogs get very upset. So it's just especially near July 4th, it's a very bothersome, you know, holiday in there with the fireworks. So that if they go up, they got to come down on your property. Another thing is you got to have some water, and maybe Chief Brogan talk about some of that stuff later, but you got to have water around the area where you're lighting off the fireworks. You cannot be intoxicated. You cannot be smoking, you know, if anyone's smoking. So just so our citizens know, you know, we respond to these, we take these seriously. The only problem is we get so many runs on those days that by the time we get out there, you know, we're trying to handle the other emergency runs in the city, and we get so many firework runs backed up. When we pull up, a lot of times it's dark, we can't see who's lighting that off. You got a group of 5, 6 kids who's specifically lighting that off. That's who you got to write the violation to, so that's sometimes kind of tough. But I do ask our residents to make sure you call us, and we take our runs by priority, and you know, we'll get out there as soon as we can, and try to write some violations in the community. Like I said, it's kind of hard to do by the time you get out there. If we receive the call, a lot of times people have quit doing them, put them away. But usually every year we confiscate a lot, put them in a big bucket of water at the police station, and then they're secure that way. You know, the issue with confiscating them is they are a hazardous, you know, material, and the fire department, you know, kind of chastise us for, you know, confiscating them and bringing them in, you know. So we try to, if we're out there, we try to write a violation and then try to destroy the fireworks maybe they're at the scene.
Destroy the evidence.
Yeah, destroy. You know, you bring them in and you have that hazard issue of transporting them in a police car. If the officers are en route to the station with the fireworks and you get a major run, or, you know, where you need to go somewhere, you know what, you don't want to transport that in a vehicle.
Absolutely.
So our residents are aware, yeah, you know, there's a lot that will be going on in the next few weeks here, but give us a call and we're going to try our best to enforce the ordinances in the state law.
Also, you know, we've recently, Governor Schneider deregulated the fireworks, you know, laws and what have you, and you know, the regular citizen can get a hold of these, you know, humongous, you know, ornate kind of fireworks, and
right.
I would imagine that there's a lot more issues with those kinds of things than just, you know, our friendly, you know, neighborhood fireworks.
They've made, what they've done is they made the consumer grade fireworks now legal to sell in Michigan. Before you'd have to leave, I mean, they were never legal to use or sell in
We'd
Michigan.
have to go to Ohio.
Yeah,
or
so
something
people would
to
drive, we
purchase
saw right
them.
on the borders, people would be driving over and buying them. And so
and using them illegally, so now
they're always being used illegally. And so I think there was some people really thought that once Michigan changed the laws where they could sell them, it's totally legal to use them whenever they want to, and it really is not. It's only those 3 days, depending on your local ordinance. And ours is such that you cannot use them still except for those 3 days. And that's only because the state has tied our hands. And
Exactly.
we're trying, I don't agree with the state making one blanket ruling for every place in the state. What might make sense for some place up north where they've got acres of land just doesn't make sense here in Dearborn Heights. Yeah, for any densely populated area. So I am very much against the use of consumer fireworks. And the entire fire service is against the use of consumer fireworks, and they're making steps. I mean, locally here, they're doing it on the state level, they're doing it on the national level, and on the national level, they have quite a large group of people now that have band together to try to work to make them illegal across the nation, including the NFPA, the National Fire Protection Association. They've paired with the American Academy of Pediatric Surgeons, I believe that's who it is. And then there's a multitude of healthcare organizations and almost every fire organization that's out there. The International Association of Firefighters, the International Association of Fire Chiefs, and it just goes on and on and on. There's a tremendous amount of people that are trying to make this, like there are ways, we're talking about ways that you could be more safe when you're using fireworks, but the only real safe way we say is to not do them. The fireworks are designed to explode. That's their main purpose. You know, there are tips, and like some people put the fireworks in their pocket. We say, please don't do that. But we've gotten, as the fire service, we're trying to get away from even talking about a safe way to use fireworks, because we just believe that if you want to enjoy fireworks for the 4th of July, go see a professional show where these people have training and experience, and they've gone to schools, and they have to get continuing training to use these fireworks. And even the experts have accidents. So imagine, you know, regular person who's had 6 beers and now in his backyard shooting off a bunch of very dangerous explosives, and so it's just a recipe for a disaster.
You don't want them lighting a candle, much less
right,
you know,
exactly.
working with fireworks.
Exactly, and so it's just, and even something as innocent as sparklers. Sparklers cause a tremendous amount of injuries. They burn at some reports say 2,000, some reports say 1,200. Either way, it's very, very hot at the tip. You give them to toddlers, they're running around in the dark and making all kinds of shapes, and they end up with burnt hands, burnt feet, you know, wherever they touch it. And so we kind of look at that as being safe, and I don't want to be the killjoy for everyone. I know that even when I was a kid I played with sparklers, but I also know people that were injured playing with sparklers. So
It's a health hazard in
is.
so many different ways.
It is.
What kind of, have you gotten calls even from last year or whatever you can remember, certain calls because of the new consumer fireworks that, in the neighborhoods?
Do you know what I have to say? The calls have remained constant, even when they upgraded when they made the laws more lenient, where they could use more of them. We haven't seen a huge spike, but it's remained it's kind of remained the same, which is still a good number. I believe there's like $20 million of property damage from fires as a result of fireworks on an annual basis.
Wow.
Nationwide. And the 4th of July is always well, not always, but very usually has the most structure fires that day across the nation, and two out of every 5 are related to fireworks of those fires. So in Dearborn Heights, we had a garage fire. We've had a bunch of grass fires. We've had some minor incidents, but we can't. If we just wait for there to be a major incident and then react, it's gonna be too late.
Sure.
And having said that, we've seen people with parts of their hands blown off and all kinds of injuries related to fireworks. Over my 20 years, I've seen quite a few firework injuries, and I'm sure Chief Gavin could say the same thing.
I remember there was one time I was sitting in one of our parks and watching one of the professional fireworks. It was a few years ago, and there was some people on the side, and they were doing fireworks, and one of them just went off, and it went right into my ear, and all I could see were the people that were sitting with me going, and I couldn't hear a thing, and my hearing was gone for a good maybe, I want to say 2 to 3 minutes, and it really scared me. So those kinds of things are really prevalent, and you just don't realize how dangerous they are.
Right.
But as a city, do we have any jurisdiction to actually create certain ordinances to say, if you're in this populated area, you can't use these consumer, grade fireworks, or is it just sort of like trying to maintain, the
we can come up with some ordinances. We have come up with some with our city prosecutor. The only problem is when the state law is in effect, it's hard to override the state law. And the state law covers those 3 days, day before, the day of, and the day after. So we're kind of limited what we can do during those days. But any other time of the year, it's illegal to light off fireworks in Dearborn Heights. So
what do you do if someone does
we
fire
do
them off?
the same procedures we do on these holidays, after midnight. So now during these 3 days, we don't do too much until after midnight is when we can write a violation for them lighting them off. Earlier in the day, they have to follow some of those rules that I stated earlier.
Now, is it a misdemeanor or a civil infraction?
They're civil infraction.
Okay.
The way the state handles it now and the way we adopted the ordinance is it's a civil infraction. But on one of those days outside of the 3-day, coming up holiday, if someone lights them off during the day, we can write a violation for them, confiscate them. So you can only ignite them, light them off the 3 days, near the holiday.
So what does, if you did get a civil infraction, what does that entail? What do you have
That's
to do?
a mandatory court case. You got to go before the judge, and he could fine you up to, I believe it's a $500 fine. The judges have been working, the court system's been working with us. We know that fireworks is a major issue in our city. We get a lot of, along with Chief Brogan, I'm sure he does too, a lot of emails from the residents. We get a lot of unhappy residents at our council meetings asking us, try to stop, try to prevent some of this. So we're trying our best. Are we going to be able to stop it completely? No. We all know if you're in Dearborn Heights near the holidays this July 4th, you're going to hear fireworks everywhere.
Sure.
We don't have enough residents, let alone police officers, to take care of all the fireworks. So we're going to try our best, but we just ask the people that are lighting them off to be considerate of your neighbors, like you said earlier, with your animals. The animals, our older folks, they're not all up on what all these sounds are, and they get very intimidated and scared. And there's no need for an elderly person to be hiding under their bed because they're afraid. We'll get those calls. Hey, I'm locked in my room. I don't know what all these noises are. So try to be considerate of your neighbors.
And it does. It sounds like a war zone sometimes, because you've got everybody, and then you have these lights in the air, and for someone that is a little bit, timid. I mean, it's overwhelming, and so yes, being considerate, I think, is the number one thing that we have to realize. so it's going to be a fact of life for us. But do you have any specific advice for those who really do not like the fireworks and do not want to be around it? What advice would you give them? Leave for a while, or
Yeah, I'm not even. Yeah, that's going to be your best bet, and contact your representatives in the state. That's all your local representatives know, and when they first came out with the changes to these laws, I was with a group of fire marshals. I was a fire marshal at the time. We were in Lansing, and they announced this to us. And because we instantly knew where this was going to lead. Like, our phones are going to be ringing off the hook with people complaining. They were going to be calling our city councils, our mayors, our police departments, and they're telling us that they're making these changes. And we were just wondering, what is the plan as far as how we're supposed to handle all of these calls.
Sure.
I would like to see them calling their state representatives and get this handled on the state level. And we're working on that too. I've been out to Lansing 4 or 5 times. We have a new fire marshal, Doug Bailey. He's going to be introduced to this very quickly, just like I was, and this is going to be a big thing on his agenda to try to get handled. And then again, on the national level, with all these large organizations that we're a part of, they're trying to help us, cope with this, a sudden influx of fireworks. I think there's 43 states now that have consumer fireworks are legal, and so the numbers are going to start creeping up. And it just seems silly to me to have to wait to have some kind of major or a major disaster affect Dearborn Heights,
sure.
where then we're going to make the changes.
Sure.
I'd like to see something happen.
I was listening to the radio the other day, and they said, one of the fireworks stores actually came up, and they said it was standing room only. I mean, it was elbow to elbow. Everybody was in there, just and I guess that's the economy, but you got to look at the flip side to that too.
Right.
Chief Gavin, earlier we were talking about a system that's going in again, to keep our residents safe and to keep them informed. You said it was the crime mapping system, and that's something that you're reviewing for a while to see if it's something that the citizens could benefit from.
Sure, I'm happy to announce we're working on a crime mapping plan, a system where our residents will be able to log in to a website, and then they'll be able to look through Dearborn Heights specific crimes and see what crimes are in their area or what's happening in the cities. We will have probably homicides, felonious assaults, some major crimes. We're not going to go and list every single crime, because then when you look at the pin map, you see red dots or whatever we're going to use all over. If a bike is stolen out of a garage, this or that. That information will come to our residents who are involved in the community awareness program with Corporal Mark Perinello. He sends all those emails on crime trends. But the mapping, we're working right now. Hopefully, our next chief's chat here, we will have the program finalized, and we'll be able to go in a little more detail on that. But there'll be a website, like I said, where our residents can go in and look up crime in their specific area or citywide, and also it'll show some of the bordering communities and type of crimes that they're experiencing.
Wonderful.
So as we get a little more into that, we'll come back and we'll
Sounds good. We'll look forward to hearing from you about that. Obviously, safety is the #1 concern for our residents, and it's in your hands too. We have to be very careful with our fireworks, with our bonfires, when we go on vacation, and just being very cognizant of our surroundings. Be safe this summer. Enjoy your summer, and be very conscious of being safety conscious. Chief, thank you so much
well, thank
for
you.
joining
Thanks
us
for
on
having
Chief
me.
Chat. And Chief Gavin,
Thank
you. Wonderful information, very usable and very practical. Have a good day. This was Chief Chat.